Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from startup founders and executives. I am your host, Lisa Dreher, and I am really excited to introduce our guest for today, Rick Sanford. He is the Chief Operating Officer at SpaceBilt. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Good afternoon, Lisa. How are you?
It's so good and so happy to have you here today. I'm really excited to learn more about the work that you are doing at SpaceBilt. So perhaps we can start by having you give a little bit of background on yourself and then SpaceBilt.
For sure, positive. I started my career in the Air Force, stationed at the Pentagon. Spent some time at the State Department, and then into the routing and multiplexing world, and then 12 years at Cisco Systems, actually, where I was responsible for the intelligence community business and really embarked on building networks in space back in 1998, 1999 to support some of the mission needs out of that community. After almost 13 years there, I went into consulting and have subsequently spent time in various satellite manufacturers, satellite operators, and most recently was at a large-scale composites manufacturing company called Beyond Gravity before meeting Dennis Wingo, our founder, in Paris at the World Satellite Business Week in September, and he said, "Hey Rick, I need to talk to you. I want you to come join my new company called SpaceBilt." And so that's how I come to you today.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so give us a little bit of background on SpaceBilt.
So SpaceBilt is actually a continuation entity from a company called SkyCorp Incorporated. It is a true startup, but it comes to the market with patented technology. I guess what I would say is there are a group of folks around the industry globally, actually, who've had ideas and concepts of being able to do in-space assembly and manufacturing, to be able to do in-space logistics, from the big visions starting way back in science fiction up until today. I think SpaceBilt is plausible and a reality today because of the advancements in technology all across the spectrum, be it compute power on the ground, communications technology, right up through laser communications, as well as all the advancements we've seen in space. Perhaps most importantly, as the denominator, the reduced launch cost that we see coming from companies like SpaceX in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as I understand it, the mission that SpaceBilt has is to not only do in-space manufacturing, but reuse and repurpose space debris and or defunct, spacecraft and things like that into new things. Is that a good description, or
It's
help me out?
it is a good description. The way that I articulate what SpaceBilt is doing is building completely repurposable and remanufacturable satellites in space. And so, as we look at the primary mission, it's comprised of two parts. One is an orbital factory, and the other are satellites that have had to have been completely reimagined in terms of the way that we design them. It has some really significant benefits in terms of being able to be a much lighter, therefore being able to orbit, raise, and transition through space in a much quicker fashion than current spacecraft, because they're robotically assembled on orbit. They are, you can think of them as Legos in space. They're very easy. But if there are challenges or problems, we'll see them as the robots are extending solar arrays and doing things that other spacecraft have traditionally had to have onboard mechanisms to support. So we think it's a lower risk way to generate capabilities in space. And then in mid-mission life, or as new requirements come up, being able for these satellites to fly back to the factory and have payloads updated, have power systems updated. They're completely repurposable and remanufacturable in space. So we don't create debris. And it really is, if we think about the continuum of in space, from the mission extension vehicles and the mission robotic vehicles that Northrop Grumman flew, to the current state of companies producing or thinking about 3D printing in space and debris removal. Our focus is really on enabling organizations to see, hear, communicate, and maneuver without regret. And we're a logistics company, pre-positioning these factories and garages with satellites and parts across the cislunar environment, not just in LEO.
Wow. Okay. So this is just completely mind-blowing. I mean, obviously, companies have been talking about this for a really long time. How close are we to actually getting to this being a reality?
Well, I think we're much closer, I think, than a lot of people perceive. We see a lot of good work going on in the industry today, as I mentioned, with some of the other players that are there. We're in the middle of a series of risk reduction activities, having another transaction agreement in place with the Defense Innovation Unit, and burning down risk with missions to the International Space Station. Our Lego building block, the Intelligent Space Systems Interface from our partner IBOS, was qualified on the International Space Station starting in 2022, 9 months outside on the Kibo module. We have another mission going up at the beginning of next year. It's the large in-space server and storage system. It's over 100 terabytes of storage capacity. We have a payload that was delivered to a partner in December that will fly to the moon in November of this year. That payload, interestingly, is instrumented with a radiation sensor that will allow us to characterize the environment for modern electronics from the launch pad all the way through to the lunar surface, which will really enable us to drive our mission forward. But the answer to your question is mid 2026, we will assemble our first Starcraft, is what we call our satellite, aboard the International Space Station, as sort of a final risk reduction on the satellite portion itself.
Wow, that is really exciting. So, how does the end of life of the space station impact, I guess, go forward plans beyond 2030?
Sure, and for us, I think there are an awful lot of there's an awful lot of activity around a space station, and there are still efforts underway to look at repurposing it, extending the national lab functionality that's there. We're partnered with SpaceBD as an example, a Japanese company that will help us do some of these demonstration missions that are there. But then we have new entrants as well, companies like Axiom, and Blue Origin and others that are looking at stations in space. And so it's still a question mark, I guess, is the way I would answer it. It has been a wonderful platform for so many organizations, benefiting so many on the earth, that we are excited about what the future holds, and working diligently with NASA, with the national labs, to extend mission life where it makes sense. And hopefully, by the time that platform is deorbited or moved to another location, we have commercial stations that are there and able to provide similar services.
Excellent. Okay. So we also invited you here to talk a little bit about just kind of startup success factors and things like that. And what I'm really interested in, and I know just hearing about your background, obviously you have a really varied background from startups to very large corporations. What have you seen are the biggest factors towards success, either for startups themselves and or for entrepreneurial efforts within larger enterprise organizations?
Well, I think one of the hard lessons learned for me early on, actually for my entire team at the time, is there's no cure to being too early to the market. I
Mhm.
mentioned at the top of the show that I was endeavoring to create a merged terrestrial and space architecture back in 1998. It was very interesting. Peter DeSelding asked me a question that proved to be really a harbinger of what was to come. And he said, Rick, this whole concept of networks and things in space is interesting, but what's the application you're building to be able to take advantage of that? And I looked at him like he had three eyeballs. What do you mean? I build plumbing, I build networks. I'm not an application house. But that proved to be the challenge in those early days. So I think it's super important for entrepreneurs and startups to think through the plausibility and utility of what they're bringing to market. Understanding factors that are completely outside of their control could have an impact. You want to be first to market or first or second to market to gain that competitive edge, but your users or your intended customers have to have an application and have to have a need. So I think many companies over time have built solutions looking for problems. SpaceBilt, as an example, is very, very focused on solutions to well-known problems and demand signals from customers over a long period of time. So it's a balancing act. Make sure that the timing is right for your customers, not just your idea to the market.
Right, right, right. So, in looking back at some of those experiences, are there things that kind of, as you worked through the path to, a profitable organization, where you just, if you had the opportunity to start over, that you would do things different?
So I think the most important thing is to not be overly enthusiastic about the technology, and really understand that the standard blocking and tackling that needs to happen in every business is perhaps even more important for startups. Understand what your plan looks like. Have it written down. Obviously, it's a living document, but if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. And many organizations, and myself included, have spent a lot of time romancing the technology, so to say, and missing perhaps just the basics in terms of blocking and tackling. I would offer that as one point. The second point would be that as we look at as we're looking towards how we go to market, particularly in the space marketplace, partners are really key. And I use a term called co-opetition. Oftentimes, there are companies that market things the same way, perhaps, that you're thinking about marketing them, or have a similar product or a similar capability, or we try to vertically integrate everything. I think that's a domain well understood for billionaires, but very challenging, I think, in for most companies and organizations. So think about your ecosystem. Stay focused on those things that you're really, really, really good at, and partner or acquire those things that perhaps aren't your primary focus and your primary use of cycles for the smart folks in your organization.
Right. So, how do you find the right partners?
So I guess it pays to be an older person in the marketplace. There are a ton of resources out there today in terms of simple internet searches. I think most companies and most more senior people in the industry have a Rolodex and an experience set with a wide array of companies and partners. But I think, as beyond determining who might be a good partner, I think there are two things that are critically important as we examine a potential partner for SpaceBilt, as an example. One is, what are the values of the organization? Do their values match your company's values? And that value centricity really promulgates through every action and every activity that happens in the business. So one is culture, and two is, these are relationships. These aren't single use engagements. And I think it's really important to think about their business continuum along with your business continuum, and understanding, hey, perhaps today it's not a good fit, or maybe today is a perfect fit for a tool set a partner may bring. But there may come a point in time where that tool set doesn't support where you're going in the future. I think back to the values, making sure you have a very transparent, clear conversation on that front is also very important.
Yeah, good advice. When we do things that have never been done before, we run into a lot of roadblocks along the way. What have you found are the best ways to just work through those roadblock situations?
That's a really, really, really important question. In my personal experience, every action needs to have one or two fallback actions that come along with it. And I think there are some old adages out there. You can't go sell really hard and solve a problem, nor can you go engineer really hard and necessarily solve a problem either. So I think it's very important to have your eyes up on the horizon of where you're going, understand the thing that absolutely must be done, and look for other ways that you may be able to achieve the same thing. Perhaps it's more risk reduction. Perhaps it's an opportunity to look in the market and see if there's another path through. I think you have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of persistence, and but perhaps most importantly is you have to have perspective. You can't let the tree right in front of you, cloud your vision of the forest and where you're going. So I think eyes up is really important, and the patience and persistence is super important as well.
Right, of course. Okay, so here's the big question, and I'm really excited to hear your response to this because SpaceBilt is so focused on kind of a future where we can really reuse and repurpose some of this hardware that's hanging around in space. So what I really want to know is, what if you could make one prediction about the future, would your prediction be?
Um, and that's a really tough question to answer. So here's my sort of third step view towards what the future looks like. I think in the next decade or decade and a half, we will see um, depots in space. We will see a thriving cislunar space economy that is supporting not only our ambitions on the moon, but really creating that first logistic step towards Mars and the broader solar system. I think very down to earth in terms of repeating things that work well here. And so on the planet, I mean, and so if we think about what works well, and let's take a look at Amazon and the ability to go online at 9 o'clock at night and buy something that you need and have it delivered the next day. It's going to be super critical that we have logistics platforms in cislunar space that enable us to do reconstitution of damaged assets, building new capabilities and support for existing satellites, building new satellites, supporting the mining ecosystem that's emerging in other areas of cislunar space and other companies. So you can think of it just like warehouses and factories in cislunar space from L1 through L5. Orbiting the moon. It's really important to note. SpaceBilt is its beachhead customers are in the geo market, so we're focused geo and cislunar. We are doing risk reduction in LEO, which is cost conscious and makes sense. But I think we will see in a very short period of time an entire ecosystem of logistics and manufacturing in space that's just as commonplace as the International Space Station and just as commonplace as satellites as we know them today.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely could be, I mean, or will be a major game changer for the industry because you eliminate so much cost if you're able to accomplish that in space. And then just the whole idea of reusing what is already out in space is a really exciting future to look forward to.
We certainly believe that as well. And as I mentioned, there's an awful lot of good work going out on in this domain, if you will, of in space assembly and manufacturing. And I think who knows what the future really holds. I'm going to hold up a prop here. I mean, when in the world did anyone imagine that it would be critical for a 10-year-old to have a map and a thesaurus and a dictionary and more compute power than all of the space shuttles combined in their hand to be able to do daily life. So I'm really excited about the unknown, the art of the possible in what this tool set that we're building today will bring to my kids and future generations. It's a super exciting time in this market. The energy is back in it in a big way, Lisa, as we talked about prior to the show, and I'm just happy to have a small part in continuing and seeing the outcome of visions that have been there for 30 plus years.
Okay, I am just incredibly inspired. So, so thank you for that perspective. And if someone wanted to learn more about SpaceBilt, what should they do?
www.spacebuilt.com is a great place to go for a website. And I'm Rick at spacebuilt.com if there are any direct questions that I can answer.
Great. And built is BILT, correct?
Importantly, yes, ma'am, BILT.
Okay, excellent. So spacebuilt.com. And thank you so much for making time to be here today, Rick. An incredibly inspiring conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity. And I really enjoy your show and have enjoyed other episodes and look forward to the future ones as well. So thanks very much again for having SpaceBilt on.
Absolutely my pleasure.